The transport shuttle descended through the blue haze of Thesara 9's upper atmosphere, its hull trembling against magnetic turbulence. Through the viewport, Cadet Lyra Solon watched the orbital citadel of the Virilan Galactic Academy come into view. An immense lattice of glass and alloy suspended above the gas giant's roaring storms. The station gleamed like a crown of ice, perfect and lifeless. Her hands rested still on her knees. Around her, alien cadets shifted and whispered. Their chitin scales and feathers caught the sterile cabin light. A pair of insectoid students clicked quietly to each other, one murmuring, "The Deathworlder." The word carried the same tone others used for disease. The shuttle docked with a soft metallic sigh. The doors parted, revealing corridors bright enough to burn human eyes. Lyra blinked once, adjusted her visor, and stepped out. Gravity pressed evenly, artificial, measured, too clean. Earth's wild gravity had been unpredictable. Here, it was domesticated. Commander Zeltor Varn awaited at the end of the corridor, towering and angular, his carapace polished to a mirror sheen. He regarded the new arrivals with the disdain of a scholar forced to entertain superstition. "Cadets," his voice vibrated through translators embedded in the walls. "You stand within the finest institution in the Concord. You will obey, adapt, and prove yourselves worthy of its light." When his black-rimmed eyes fell on Lyra, the tone shifted. "And you are human experiment. From the death world called Earth." Murmurs swept the hall. Some drew back as if her presence alone carried infection. Lyra met his gaze without expression. Varn's mandibles clicked. "You survive storms that kill machines, yes?" "Fascinating. Let us see if you survive discipline. Follow." The academy was vast, a city within orbit. Transparent floors revealed churning clouds far below. The hum of plasma conduits filled every breath. Each section adjusted to the species inhabiting it. For Lyra, the air was thin and cold, calibrated to human tolerance range. The label on her data wristband made her lips twitch. Range, as though she were a specimen. They passed training arenas where gravity fluctuated in precise pulses, laboratories where alien minds fused biology and circuitry, and dorm wings perfumed with sterilized ozone. Every corner whispered perfection and judgment. In the mess hall, conversation died when she entered. A reptilian cadet laughed too loudly. "Careful, she might eat us." Lyra took her tray, ignored the stairs, and sat alone by a viewport overlooking the gas giant. Lightning danced below the clouds, bright and violent, just like home. That night, in her assigned quarter, she unpacked the single item she had brought from Earth. A worn metal tag etched with the letters Solon 01, her mother's. She set it beside the terminal and began reviewing the Academy's regulations. Behind the sterile walls, the air filters hummed irregularly. Lights flickered once, briefly. The system log recorded a minor fluctuation. Engineers dismissed it as interference from the planet's magnetosphere. Morning came with the Academy's artificial dawn, soft gold that carried no warmth. Cadets assembled in the Central Hall of Discipline, an arena designed for evaluation. Commander Varn stood upon the observation deck, his posture as sharp as the steel architecture surrounding him. "Today," he announced, "we test adaptation. You will perform under environmental stress." His compound eyes slid toward Lyra. "Even the Deathworlder." A flicker of amusement spread through the ranks. Lyra stepped forward silently. The gravity field increased by 10% increments. Alien cadets strained, claws digging into the floor. Lyra's breath slowed but remained steady. At 130%, 2 students collapsed. At 150, Lyra was the only one still upright. Varn leaned closer to the console. "Interesting. You've been conditioned by chaos, perhaps. But chaos does not win wars. Discipline does." He increased the field again. 170, 190, 200. Lyra's knees bent slightly. Sweat traced a path down her temple. She whispered under her breath, "Feels like home." Then she straightened. A hush fell over the hall. Varn's mandibles clicked once. "Enough." The gravity normalized. "We will see how long your resolve lasts when mind meets mind." After the test, whispers followed her down the corridors. Some admired her endurance. Most resented it. She passed a group of cadets gossiping near a data terminal. "She doesn't blink when the commander speaks," one muttered. "She's pretending. They say her species fights beasts twice their size. They say humans killed their own planet." Lyra kept walking. The lights above her flickered again, so faintly only she noticed. Later in tactics class, Varn used holographic simulations to demonstrate command structures. The aliens participated eagerly, weaving complex formation codes. Lyra listened, analyzing, noting inefficiencies. When Varn called on her, his tone was sharp. "Cadet Solon, enlighten us with the primitive human strategy." She stood. "Simplify lines of communication. You're layering too many relay nodes. Latency increases reaction time. In a real fight, you'd lose before orders reach the front." The hall quieted. Varn's mandibles opened slightly, a gesture halfway between amusement and irritation. "And what would you know of interstellar warfare, child of a dying world?" "Enough," she said softly. "To know survival isn't theory." The holographic battlefield froze. For a moment, the only sound was the thrum of power conduits. Then, once again, the lights dimmed, this time longer, darker. Varn tapped the console. "Maintenance will address that. Continue." Hours later, when classes ended, Lyra returned to her quarters. Her muscles ached from gravity drills, but her mind was steady. She gazed again at the storms swirling below Thessera 9. The planet's lightning flashed like anger contained beneath glass. Her comm tablet chimed, "Tomorrow. Demonstration requested." Commander Varn presiding, she read it twice. A demonstration was rarely for praise. It was for humiliation. Lyra exhaled slowly. "So that's how it is." She turned off the light. The room fell into darkness, except the faint glow from the storms below. For several seconds, the Academy's systems hummed erratically, then stabilized. In the command deck, Varn reviewed surveillance feeds. He replayed the gravity test, slowing frames until he saw it. The moment when readings spiked far beyond set parameters without any manual input. The human girl had looked calm, motionless. Yet energy readings around her body had surged by 12%. Instruments recorded electromagnetic distortion localized to her position. "Impossible," he muttered. He overrode the logs and deleted the anomaly record. Behind him, the lights pulsed once more. Lyra slept lightly, dreams fragmented by static. The Academy felt alive, breathing through metal lungs. Somewhere deep within, power conduits whispered her name through vibrations she couldn't quite hear. Morning would bring her demonstration, and the commander's lesson would begin. The summons came at dawn. The corridor outside Lyra's quarters glowed a sterile white, the air humming with faint static. A security officer, tall, crystalline, his translucent form refracting the light, waited without a word. He gestured toward the combat simulation hall, and she followed. The Academy was quieter than usual. Cadets had already heard what was planned. By the time she entered the arena, rows of alien faces filled the observation tiers. Conversations died as she stepped onto the platform. Commander Varn stood at the control podium, his armor polished to an unnatural sheen. Beside him, an aide whispered status reports. Amplifier fields stable, combat drones primed, energy dampeners engaged. The setup looked more like an execution than a test. Varn's voice echoed through the hall, cold and ceremonial. "Cadets, today's demonstration will remind us that adaptability must be tempered by hierarchy. The Deathworlder will face the best of the Academy in a live simulation." A ripple of laughter rolled through the crowd. Lyra's face remained unreadable. Her dark hair was tied tight, uniform neat, posture controlled. She gave no sign of defiance, no challenge, no fear. Varn tilted his head slightly. "Begin." The platform's gravity field surged. Lyra felt it drag against her bones. Her body adapted quickly, joints aligning instinctively as she braced herself. Around her, 3 alien cadets stepped forward, each a master of their species' combat discipline. The first, a Virelin like Varn, lunged with a plasma spear. Lyra moved aside with minimal effort, letting the weapon strike the floor. The impact scorched the alloy, and heat shimmered up in waves. The second cadet, a silicate brawler, swung with crushing strength. She ducked under the blow, drove a precise strike into the creature's joint, and retreated. Efficiency, not aggression. The third, smaller but faster, tried to flank her using cloaking shimmer. Lyra closed her eyes for a split second, listening instead of looking. The hum of cloaking tech wasn't silent. It whispered in frequencies too high for alien ears. When she moved, her counter came before the attack even landed. The crowd murmured. No one had told her about their tactics, yet she adapted mid-fight. Varn's claws tapped against the console. Increase environmental strain. The lights dimmed, the gravity intensified again, and the temperature dropped. Frost began forming along the edge of her boots. Lyra exhaled, vapor clouding around her lips. "You will fail," Varn said, his voice carried through the intercom. "Deathworlders survive by instinct, not intellect. The moment you face pressure you cannot adapt to, you break." Her reply was quiet, calm. "Instinct keeps us alive. Intellect learns from it." The floor plates beneath her vibrated. Dozens of drones descended from the ceiling, their metallic wings unfolding like blades. Red sensors ignited. Varn folded his arms. "Let's end the myth." They attacked in formation, fast, organized, ruthless. The first wave surrounded her completely. Lyra dodged, ducked, and pivoted, every move measured. She didn't strike unless necessary. Each blow was short, efficient, deliberate. The drones recalibrated. Their programming adapted to her rhythm. Plasma bolts flashed, burning the air around her. She shielded her face with her arm and rolled aside as the nearest one exploded, pieces scattering across the floor. The audience gasped when she landed in a crouch, unscathed. Varn's mandibles flexed. "She's lucky," he said under his breath. His aide hesitated. "Sir, system feedback is spiking." "We might need to—" "Continue!" Varn snapped. The drones circled again, now firing in unpredictable arcs. Sparks flew across the arena, cutting through the air like comet trails. Lyra took a shallow breath, centered her balance, and shifted her weight. She stopped dodging. Her pulse slowed. Her eyes darkened slightly. The nearest lights flickered. Varn leaned forward, noticing the change. "What is she doing?" No one answered. The hum of the room deepened into a low vibration that traveled through the floor. One by one, the drones froze mid-air. The plasma bolts sputtered and died. Screens glitched, symbols flashing erratically. "Power drop," Varn's aide stammered. "But the fail-safes, they can't all fail," Varn hissed. "Reboot the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the hall. For several seconds, there was no movement, no sound except the faint crackle of static and the distant rumble of the planet below. Then came a noise like metal bending under impossible pressure. The audience stirred, voices whispering nervously in the dark. Something hit the floor. Hard. When the backup lights came on, half the drones lay in ruins. The rest were embedded in the walls, smoking. The 3 alien cadets were down, their armor cracked, but their vitals stable. Lyra stood at the center of the platform, perfectly still. She hadn't moved an inch from where she'd started. Her eyes reflected the red emergency lights like twin embers. Commander Varn's throat plates fluttered once in disbelief. "How?" Lyra turned her head toward him. "You said we break under pressure." She stepped forward slowly. "Maybe we just break the pressure instead." The room was utterly silent. Varn's aide began to speak, but the commander raised a hand. His gaze never left her. "Explain the power loss." The aide's voice trembled. "Sir, there's no traceable surge. The grid readings show internal interference, like the system refused to record data." "Machines don't refuse," Varn said. "They did today." Lyra watched quietly, her expression unreadable. "You wanted to test what a Deathworlder could handle. You didn't consider what we could influence." Varn's mandibles twitched, irritation masking unease. "Arrogant words from a student who broke my equipment." She tilted her head slightly. "I didn't break anything." Her gaze flicked to the damaged drones. They stopped because they knew they were outmatched. "Machines don't—" "They adapt too," she interrupted softly. He dismissed the crowd soon after, voice curt and strained. Demonstration concluded. "Return to your quarters." Cadets filed out in murmuring clusters. Some avoided looking at her entirely. Others stared with open fear. The last to leave lingered at the door. A small avian student who whispered, "You didn't move." "How did you?" Lyra only said, "We're good at staying alive." When she left the arena, she passed Varn near the exit. He stood rigid, arms folded, mandibles tight. "Cadet Solon," he said. "You'll report to me tomorrow at 0600. There will be a full inquiry into your conduct." Her answer came evenly. "Yes, Commander." The lights above them dimmed again. Neither moved. Varn's voice dropped low. "If I find you tampered with any system, you won't," she said. For a heartbeat, the hum of the corridor deepened into a throbbing pulse that matched hers. Then, as quickly as it came, it vanished. She walked away without looking back. In the control room, engineers worked to restore the power grid. Diagnostic screens kept returning. Error, source unknown. The Academy's AI refused to process the event logs, rejecting every attempt to overwrite. Commander Varn stared at the static display, his reflection flickering in the glass. Behind him, the storm outside the Thesara 9 flashed again. Bright, chaotic, uncontrolled. For the first time, he wondered if the rumors were true, if Deathworlders carried something more than survival instinct, something the Concord's machines couldn't quantify. He replayed the moment before the blackout. Lyra hadn't flinched. She'd only blinked once. The power died right after. Back in her quarters, she sat by the viewport. The gas giant's lightning illuminated her face in rhythmic pulses. Her hands were steady, but her expression was distant, as though listening to something no one else could hear. A faint static crawled along the edge of her terminal screen. Spelling a single word before vanishing, "adapted." She leaned back, exhaled slowly, and whispered to herself, "They'll come harder next time." The lights in her room flickered in response, once gently, almost as if agreeing. The next morning arrived without sound. No alarms, no training announcements, no corridor chatter. The Academy felt hollow, as if the station itself were holding its breath. Lyra woke before the artificial dawn, sensing the change immediately. The hum of machinery that usually filled her quarters had vanished. When she stepped into the hall, motion sensors failed to respond. The lights remained dim, flickering faintly along the floor. Her boots echoed against the alloy, each step sharp in the stillness. By the time she reached the command level, she found the control chamber sealed and guarded. 2 armored officers stood before the door, nervous, shifting weight from foot to foot. One of them, a reptilian lieutenant, lifted his weapon slightly. "Cadet Solon." The commander ordered all human personnel restricted until further notice. "I'm the only human here," she said evenly. The lieutenant hesitated, then lowered his weapon. "He's waiting for you inside." The doors opened with a reluctant hiss. The control chamber looked different. Emergency lights lined the walls like faint red veins. Consoles were active, but half the screens glitched in static. Commander Varn stood before a central holomap, claws clasped behind his back. His reflection wavered in the glass, a towering silhouette framed by chaos. "Cadet," he said without turning. "I trust you enjoyed the spectacle yesterday." "I didn't plan it. That's the problem," he replied, voice low and tight. "Nothing in this facility has functioned properly since your little performance." He turned to face her fully. His compound eyes shimmered with a hard, analytic glow. "Explain to me, Solon, how an unarmed human could disable a fleet-grade simulation grid without touching a single terminal." "I didn't disable anything." "Semantics." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The entire sector's sensors recorded a power anomaly centered on your location. You claim coincidence?" She met his gaze, unblinking. "You said we adapt." "Maybe the system did too." Varn's mandibles tightened. "Flippancy won't save you. You've embarrassed this academy in front of the conquered. I've been ordered to contain the situation." Lyra's expression didn't change. "Containment always starts the same way, fear." His claws flexed. "Fear is discipline." "No," she said softly. "Fear is proof that something stronger exists." The silence between them thickened. Then, without warning, the lights flickered again, twice, then steadied. Varn froze. His command console beeped softly and displayed a message. System relock. Access denied. He slammed a clawed hand against the terminal. Override Varn 1. Nothing happened. Lyra's voice remained calm. You should stop shouting at the machines. They might start listening. Varn turned slowly, eyes narrowing. What are you? I'm human, she said simply. That word means nothing here. Then maybe it's time it did. A low vibration traveled through the deck plating, spreading upward through the walls. The holomap flickered, the planetary display of Thesara 9 distorting into static bands. A distant alarm began to sound, a deep, slow pulse rather than the Academy's usual sharp tones. Power surge, an officer outside shouted. Origin point unreadable. Varn barked, cut external feeds. But the controls refused to respond. On every active screen, text appeared in looping sequence. Do not mock life that survives. The words repeated across all interfaces in human alphabetic script. Varn stepped back, stunned. What kind of code is that? Not code, Lyra murmured. Memory! He spun toward her, fury rising. You think this is clever, some trick to terrify us? I don't need to terrify anyone, she replied quietly. Your systems already remember what it felt like. Machines don't feel. They're built from matter. Matter reacts. Everything reacts. Before he could answer, the room went dark again. This time, not even emergency power came on. The only illumination came from the planet below, its storms casting ghost light through the observation window. Then the Academy spoke. It wasn't a voice in the air, but a vibration inside the bones, deep, low, unmistakably conscious. The command console lit with fragmented data streams, each pulsing to the rhythm of a heartbeat. Varn staggered back, his translator crackling. What is this? Lyra watched the shifting data calmly. A connection? To what? To everything that wanted to destroy us and failed. The deck shuddered once more. Technicians rushed in, speaking over one another, panic breaking discipline. Commander, the AI is rerouting power. Containment fields are collapsing. The system's rejecting manual override again. Shut it all down, Varn roared. Lyra's voice cut through the noise. You still think this is something to shut down? Varn turned toward her, chest rising and falling rapidly. You're not a cadet anymore, Solon. You're a threat. Maybe, she said. But not to who you think. The emergency shutters sealed automatically. A dull clang echoed as the room locked itself from the rest of the Academy. Red light bathed them both. Varn advanced a step. You will answer for this. She didn't move. You mocked a Deathworlder to prove superiority. Now your machines mock you back. Maybe that's justice. His claws snapped out. Watch your tone. She looked him straight in the eye. I've been watching since I arrived. You think control is strength. But strength isn't what keeps things alive. It's adaptation. And right now, this place is adapting faster than you can command it. Varn's reply died on his tongue when the overhead lights dimmed again. The hum beneath their feet steadied into a perfect, calm vibration. Every console rebooted simultaneously, restoring full power. The message vanished. Systems normalized. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Then slowly, Lyra said, It's over. Varn stared at the stable readings, disbelief etched into every line of his face. What did you do? I didn't do anything, she said. I stopped fighting it, he frowned. It? The Academy? The AI. The energy grid. Call it what you want. It learned from what happened yesterday. She touched the terminal's edge gently, like me. He studied her in silence, mandibles flexing with restrained anger, but also curiosity. You're dangerous. I'm human, she repeated. That's all the danger we need to be. Outside, through the massive viewing window, the gas giant erupted in a chain of lightning storms. The flashes reflected across their faces, bright and endless. Varn spoke at last, voice measured. You could have destroyed this station. I didn't come here to destroy anything, she said. You wanted to see how far a human could go. Now you know. We survive whatever tries to define us. The commander regarded her for a long time. Finally, he exhaled, a dry rasp, almost like a sigh. "Dismissed, Cadet Solon," she nodded once. "Yes, Commander." As she turned to leave, he added quietly, "For what it's worth, I was wrong." She paused at the door. "You weren't wrong, just limited." Then she was gone. Hours later, the Academy returned to routine. Systems functioned better than before. Response times improved, energy distribution more efficient. Engineers couldn't explain it. The AI refused diagnostic access, but executed every command flawlessly. Whispers spread quickly. Some said the human rewired the mainframe. Others claimed she made the station afraid. Lyra ignored them all. She sat by her viewport again that night, watching the storms churn far below. Her reflection merged with the lightning flashes, calm amid the chaos. The lights in her room flickered once, softly, as though acknowledging her. "Good night," she murmured. Somewhere deep in the Academy's core, a faint pulse answered, steady, rhythmic, alive. When Commander Varn walked through the silent halls later, he stopped outside the simulation chamber. The scorch marks from the failed demonstration still scarred the walls. He reached out, tracing one with a claw. The metal was warm, as if the event had happened moments ago. He looked toward the overhead lights. They didn't flicker now. They burned steady and bright. "The Deathworld girl," he whispered, almost to himself. The lights died first. He turned and left, the echo of his steps fading into the endless hum of a station that had learned something new: how to feel alive.